Benevolent leadership from the stars have come to Earth to work with us to create a magical school. As a group of light workers, we have come together and are creating a consortium to serve the highest good of the collective in sharing hope, possibility, and freedom, while providing a refuge from the chaos of the great change. Welcome to the School of Light. My name is Deborah Leanne, and I am your host this evening. And today I am delighted to share one of my favorite people on the planet with you. Her name is Susanne Jane Joie. Welcome, Susanne.
Well, thanks, Deborah. I'm so happy about being here.
And this is fun because we can see each other, and the video will not be available to you all, but I just want you to know that we are sitting here with the giggles and lots of movement going through our bodies as we receive each other's energy and light. So I am so excited to introduce you to the people here that are listening to this podcast. Susanne, tell me, as a way of introducing yourself, who are you in terms of your color of light?
Color of light. Well, I would say very blue-green and red-orange. Very, on the other ends of the spectrum. I love dabbling in all various kinds of color and light and sound. But the frequency of blue-green certainly is really near and dear to my heart.
Yes, because I think that you have a lot to do with the healing on the planet for our throat chakras. Would you care to speak to that?
I think for many millennia, and certainly for long periods of time, we haven't always opened up to feel safe enough to use our voice. And sometimes we have forgotten some of our dialects. Sometimes we have forgotten how we speak to one another. And so the importance of what our word is and the sound of our tone in our voices. Mm-hmm. And recalling and coming back into ourselves to remember again and again what frequency or what vibration are we giving out, what we are giving out to one another as well as to the planet.
Right, like radio towers. And I believe that the pandemic was just an opportunity for us to understand how contagious we are. Speak a little bit about your name, Susanne Jane Joie. I know that for a while people were calling you Joy.
Yes, for many years I was called Joy, and lo and behold, I finally finalized it. I did feel some connection to my ancestral name, Susanne Jane, which if you do, it's really helpful to learn what your name is, because it comes with a very specific vibrational frequency. Like Susanne is about the lily. And so really kind of finding out and going in depth about the sound of your voice too, and what the significance is of your name. Jane is actually a family name. It was my mother's middle name. It was my grandmother's name. So I felt very compelled to hold that close to my heart. And joy was just something that was inherent as a part of me, a part of lightness. And I felt like I was embodying it. So why not just call it what it is? Mm-hmm. And so I literally went to the court and had my name changed in 2019 after I got married.
Yeah. And it was, if anybody has seen the movie Inside Out, is that the name of it? With the little cartoon characters, joy is the emotion, and she looks like you and you look like her or whatever. It was like I sometimes wonder if they didn't draw you when they were drawing her into the movie.
Yes.
Yeah. So how did you get into the space of the whole sound healing thing? How did that come through you or come about for you?
Sound healing really came through probably in 2016, 2017 while I was healing my body. And I would just, while I was in meditation, in deep meditation, all of a sudden sounds were coming out. And I didn't really know what to make of it because I kind of felt like I'd heard some of this stuff before, but some of it was toning, some of it was singing, and then some of it was language of some sort. And so much so that I tried to Google it to see, is this some ancient language or what is this? And just allowed it to pour through and found that I felt lighter, easier. Energy was moving through my body. I was feeling very optimal, like my body was performing better. Everything was in flow. And I don't think there's any mere coincidence about what was going on with that. And I kept hearing, heal thyself. And so it was like really understanding that connection of sound, of how I was speaking to myself and my cells in my body, as well as how I was speaking out into the world. And I went further to make that connection by getting, more training with someone specifically in sound healing and how different sounds correlate to different parts of the body. And so I was so intrigued by it because certainly, growing up in science, it never occurred to me. But if you think about sonic, we do a lot now in allopathic medicine with sonic waves, ultrasounds, and using sound to work through, cellular pieces. So I started seeing these connections and wanted to just dive deeper into it because I just thought, wow. And of course, I could have gone off into bowls or tuning forks, but the sound of your own voice, and voice is so organic.
Yeah.
It's divine. It's the divine coming through you.
Right. And the vagal or the vagus nerve that connects the head with all the way down the spine, it's that, like, we're our own tuning fork. And,
exactly.
The whole alignment of energy that comes through that making our own sounds. I am so curious to know then, in terms of how this can open up your voice and your expression and your leadership in the world. How does that work?
Well, I think that when you feel compelled to be all of yourself, solutions come, ideas come. Sometimes when we play with our voices, much like when we did when we were probably children and we were first learning to talk, and just exploring those various different sounds, it gets past the mental aspects of our brain, and we start remembering things, and ideas start coming to us much clearer. At least that's what I've found. So it's a type of meditative practice that I utilize too, for clarity, for strength and focus, for really feeling into my heart space and connecting with my divinity. And also, like with the vagus nerve, really tuning into it so I'm not in fight and flight. So my body is not reacting in fight and flight.
Yeah. And so much of our anxiety collectively right now is operating in that high vibing fear-based sound. I also know that you've been asked to support some creative workshops, and I'm curious how this can open creativity for someone.
Oh, what's really fun is as you kind of explore, just as much as you like to maybe paint with palettes of color, I think the two kind of sometimes can play really well together. I know we get lots of inspiration when we're listening to music. I mean, you can feel energy shift immediately when you turn on your favorite tune and you start dancing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The energy gets flying and you are boogieing, and you sometimes lay into some really creative and get in a zone. The same kind of thing, same kind of principles I think happen when you start tuning into your voice and you start playing with sound and song. And the two can intersect and be woven together. So I think playing in that playland, there's so much new expression and so much creativity and so many different solutions that can come from it.
True. I am wondering if we can somehow get back to the conversation we were having right before we started recording about understanding. If somebody is not quite understanding what they're hearing, it's kind of like when we first started reading the Gene Keys and it went flying right over our intellect because we were trying so hard to understand it. Talk to me about what this works with the brain, or how it works with the brain.
I think sound, we inherently know what certain sounds like. You can listen to a person's tone in their voice and feel emotion, right? I mean, you can walk by somebody on the street, and as they're talking to someone on the phone, you can feel anger, or you can feel gentleness, or you can, the tone of the voice and the sounds that we make sometimes transcend what our mental capacities really get at, and listen, and ourselves and our body are listening like a receiver, are listening to those sounds and can understand it, and our thinking mind may not get it, but our sensations in our body get it. You might feel it somewhere in your body. And there have been studies on sound practice with plants, let's say, where they were having a study, and they have a control plant, and they have a plant that is like yelled at, or like really angry words, hatred words kind of are spoken at it, versus one where loving words are just engaged in it. And it's a study over several weeks, months. And you see what happens to the plant. They get each the same amount of sunlight, the same amount of water, and then this study. And they found that the study of the plant that was nurtured with, lack of a better term, good vibrations, the loving thoughts, the loving energy, the sound spoken to it, the vibration of the words allowed it to blossom. And much on the cellular level, I think that happens with our own physical bodies as well.
Yeah.
So it's so important for us to really maintain a level of integrity with the words that we choose to use when we're talking to ourselves, as well as when we're talking to others.
Yes. And almost like those images that were photographed from, was it Dr. Emoto? Who was that got the crystals of the water? And
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And how they formed into these beautiful crystals when the water was receiving beautiful words or beautiful sounds.
Right.
Yeah. It feels like there's so much more alignment that we are not aware of when we try to think it through with our mind, our brain, that part of our brain. Whereas there's a whole nother part of our brain that's loving it if we would just let go of trying to understand it and make meaning.
Right. I think that we're so used to doing that. Um, and I know that our mental plane is so important for us to take action and utilize it to think through and see connections to things. But we also can trust our intuition and listen with our all of our senses, not just our mental, but our physical, five, six senses to harness the what's being portrayed.
Right. Um, I could talk to you about this forever because we can geek out, I know. But I want to ask you about what kinds of results have you gotten just by being, we used to describe you as a salt lamp. By just
Yeah.
being in the room, the energy that you are bringing to the room. What types of results have clients experienced by working with you, being with you?
So I kind of geeked out and did my own scientific experiment on several groups that I was working with, and I kind of had them do their own. They'd never met me before, doing their own measurement, where I said on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd like you to rate where you are in your joy factor, like how are you how are you feeling, like just about life in general. I mean, there's many different aspects of your life, but right in this moment, where are you? And after spending the time with a workshop with them, at the end of the workshop I asked the same question. I said, all right, well, where are you now in your space? And so when I got results back, there was a 35% increase in people's joy measurement, joy meter.
I love that term, joy meter.
Joy meter.
Yeah.
And what I'm wanting is not, the, the thing is just to show up and let it happen, but um, sustainable joy. This is not me doing anything. This is them actualizing this for themselves and having that resonance to move throughout their life to continue coming back into their joy.
Or to like leave enough breadcrumbs they can find their way back. I mean, because we're going to get knocked out, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And to remember how they can find their own joy.
Right. So
and have that resonance.
Yeah. I'm curious. I mean, if we're going to play with gene keys, can you talk to us a little bit about how do gene keys fit in with this, or a little bit about what you have learned by playing with gene keys about your life's work and your purpose?
So interestingly enough, my purpose is lightness, and so this is what I'm getting a chance to play with. And my life's work is finding those golden nuggets and sharing them with the world.
Mm.
And so that's what we don't have it all figured out. We're curious beings playing on this planet and identifying what works and what doesn't for each one of us.
Mm-hmm.
And having that creative space to just play in. Think of it as a blank canvas, and we're trying on different colors and different sounds, and then we come into alignment with people that generate more joy in our life, and we radiate that joy so that it sparks more joy in other people's lives. So there's this beautiful ebb and flow. I think of it almost like plaiting a braid, like it's all kind of interwoven together, and that's what drew me to the gene keys, is that I really sensed this keys, not only cellular, because of course scientifically it geeked me out, like I was like, oh yes, genes, yes, but also on the on a level of keys, 64 keys. Now we're back to music. Now we're back to sound. So there's something there that I really want to explore and play with that weaves those keys that we want to play in, and also enhance it in our bodies with our own sound.
Yes, and I've heard somebody liken the line numbers to be like the key that we sing in, play in, you know, how we actually embody that key from a different space than somebody else with the exact same gene key if we have a different line number. Yeah, so that's a whole nother extrapolation of the information. Yeah. So the beauty of the work that you do, if we were to see on how this could support somebody who doesn't have a high joy meter, who is really struggling with learning how to share their voice. I mean, how would you work with somebody? What kind of tools are in your toolkit?
Well, it varies from person to person. I think whatever they're needing, I just ask for divine guidance and allow messages to flow through. So some of it is fairly intuitive, being an intuitive guide, and tapping into their wisdom, having them uncover the gems that and the wisdom that they embody, but may have just forgotten.
Right, and helping shine light on their light. Yes,
on their
so you're reflecting. You're reflecting their light as a mirror. Beautiful.
Right. Beautiful. Onto their magnificence.
Yes. Beautiful. And if somebody was curious, intrigued, inspired by the words that you're sharing today, can you give us a way that they can reach you? What are some ways to find you?
So you can find me on Facebook with Toning for Joy, TONING for Joy. Joy. That's where you can find me, as well as the School of Light Collaborative.
Right, on the collective website. Okay,
collective.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, and I know that down the road there will be more information out around you as you continue to grow in your services to the world. Yes. So anything else that you feel inspired to share at this moment?
I also would encourage people to play with their voice. And I know that many people may get stuck in feeling foolish or feeling like that's not important, but you are important. Your voice matters. And so cultivating that relationship with how you sound is so, it's your beingness and your expression of who you are here. So I encourage you to creatively play with that. I also am teaching a Toning Tuesday class at the Divine Wellness community. And so that's another way, if you want to just explore playing in sound and seeing what bubbles up, we certainly would welcome you to come play.
Excellent. Well, I have enjoyed our time together. And as we close, I just want to let our listeners know that we will be posting the link to your Facebook page in the episode information, and but they can always, no matter where this recording is being listened to, you can always just send a quick question if you have something that you would like to ask Susanne or myself. So on that note, literally, we are going to close this evening, and thank you so much for your time. It has been so much fun to learn more about you and what you're up to in the world.
Thank you, Deborah, and thank you, listeners. Would love to have you come play.
Yeah, more play. You're so good at that.